Sheriff Ozzie Knezovich talks with community leaders about issues in the public safety arena. Sponsored by River Ridge Hardware.
Well, good morning. This is Sheriff Ozzie Knezovich with the Sheriff's Report. I've been away a little over the last month or so. A lot of things going on, and hopefully here shortly we're going to have a few shows that will outline and highlight some of the things that we have going on in the Spokane area and some of the things that the Sheriff's Office is involved in and working on to make Spokane a lot better in the things that we do and how we perform our duties as far as law enforcement. Training is a major important factor in the way that we serve you, the community. And I really believe that the amount of training that we give develops professionalism and confident and competent law enforcement officers that serve you in a much better way. One of the things that I have also been doing is about a month and a half ago I was asked by the Region 7 Republicans in Idaho Falls, Idaho, to come down and do a presentation for them. They had seen my Threats We Face YouTube videos in the past. They really wanted me to come and talk about those issues because they share a very common issue with the state of Washington. Besides a common border, we also share many issues that, quite frankly, have plagued both of the states of Washington and the states of Idaho. And that is radicalized hate and the dangers that faces and poses to the region, not just here in Spokane, but eastern Washington and Idaho, especially for our purposes, northern Idaho. We have, in the past, we had the Aryan nations in Hayden, Idaho, which are closely identified with the Christian Identity Movement, which is a movement that is in Stevens County, to the north of us. And we've had people from Idaho representing groups that have come over to Spokane. They have blown up buildings, they have robbed banks. So these are all major threats that we as a region share in common. So I agreed to go down and present to them. I did that over this last weekend on Saturday, and as usual, and it's almost predictable anymore, the first thing that happens is the naysayers from the state of Washington, Matt Shea's contingent of diehard supporters, the first thing they ever do to anybody is try to destroy their credibility. And folks, that's exactly what they do. And they're fairly effective at it. Because sadly, we give them that much credibility. And they really don't deserve it. So the first thing they do is they send an email to the state of Idaho, the Region 7 folks, and some interesting thought process. We're going to cover that email actually here right now. So let's go to the first slide. And this is apparently in their paper today. Down in Idaho Falls, and the email I just mentioned to you was sent by an individual by the name of William Delkey. And you know, folks, I called William when I was given this email, and my first words to him is, you know, why didn't you tell the truth? Because Bill opens up with the classic oh, this is just the sheriff running Matt Shea down. And he's been after Matt. And Bill says that Ozzie has had a 12-year running feud with Matt Shea. There's the feud angle again. And we can thank our local media for that misperception, because that's all they ever called any time that I raised the warning flag of the dangerous ideology that Matt Shea is involved in. And to this day, one of the last articles I read in the Inlander, the reporter went to the same tired feud angle. There is no feud here. And 12-year running, that would take it back to what, 2008? Well, I have a confession for y'all today. And it's more of an apology to everybody in the state of Washington, and quite frankly now the state of Idaho. Because 12 years ago, in 2008, I endorsed Matt Shea for that position. And I did it against my gut feeling. When I met with Matt the first time, I really didn't get a good vibe from the guy. I asked him a simple question. Matt, is there anything in your background that I should be concerned about? Oh no, nothing at all. I think it was about 3-4 months later, headline in the Spokane Review, candidate for 4th Legislative District has domestic violence passed. I should have dropped him right then and there. I called him and he said, oh no, I've never been convicted of anything. I should have listened to those words. You know, there were clues out there. I didn't, because you know, there were some very good people that I trusted that said, no, we need him in. He's a good kid, Ozzie. He's a good kid. And no, I should have listened to my gut. 12 years ago, Bill, I was working to get Matt Shea elected. Biggest mistake of my entire life. Biggest political mistake. Not just political mistake, the biggest mistake I've made, because I brought this to our region. And that's how I feel about it. I take full responsibility for this. Yeah, okay, I am not the sole one that got Matt Shea elected. I get it. But I worked really hard for that. And I supported Matt Shea right up until the spring of 2012. You know, there were some rocky times starting around 2009 when I kind of noticed Matt going down a bad trail. And I warned Matt not to go down that trail. And around 2010, I was contacted by Representative Joel Kretz up in the 7th and asked if I could keep Matt Shea out of trouble while he's at home. Be his mentor. I agreed to do so. And by the spring of 2012, I called Joel and went, I'm out. I'm done. There is no mentoring this guy. He is going down a path that, quite frankly, will be the end of possibly the Republican Party in Spokane if he keeps going where he's going. And that's how I felt, and that's how I still feel. So when you read these type of things in these emails, it's like, 12-year running feud? No. I apologize, folks. I take responsibility, and I apologize for ever endorsing this man, for ever working to get him elected. That is the truth. Now, let's go further into Bill's email. Matt is our champion for fighting sanctuary cities. Ozzie supported Spokane doing that. As in, I supported the city of Spokane being a sanctuary city. Bill, where have you been? Because that's either one of the most egregious falsehoods ever spoken, or you just don't know anything about Spokane politics, myself, the stances I've taken on sanctuary issues. because I firmly believe that we should be enforcing our immigration laws. I firmly believe that we should be securing our border. And Bill, I guess you missed it when last spring I actually made the statement, and folks, I never said I was going to arrest the governor. That was the media again. You know, I swear, at times I just shake my head how the media twists things at times. What I said was this: if our governor does not want to abide by his oath and honor Article 6 of the Constitution and enforce the laws of the United States, which Congress has passed, concerning immigration, he should either be sanctioned or he should be arrested for obstruction of justice. That is what I said. And I took a lot of heat because, you know, next thing I know, I got contacted by Fox News, and I went on Fox News and I said the same thing, except this time I included the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, who, by the way, folks, voted for the exact same laws that we have on the books today and is now telling people not to enforce them. Hypocritical? All for votes? That's what our system's become. We have lost who we are. We have, you know, the Democrats want to say no one's above the law. Oh, yes, there are. There are people above the law. And Congress and our governor and our state legislature have all made a classification of our population, which would be illegal aliens, above the law. That's what they've done. So don't tell me that there's nobody above the law. Folks, we have illegal immigrants that commit crimes here in the United States. Here in the United States, horrific crimes. And now we have judges that don't want us to be able to have ICE arrest them as they're coming out of a courthouse or around a courthouse. They just want them to walk free again. Or if they get out of prison, you're not supposed to let them know when they're getting out of prison. We've lost our minds. We have flat lost our minds. These are criminals. They were criminals when they came into the United States. They created criminal acts in the United States. And we want to put them above the laws of the United States. The socialist, Marxist, progressive, I don't call them Democrats, because, you know, the Democratic Party, the majority of them are going, whoa, time out, what has happened here? And many of the Democrats that I know, they're walking away. The extremes are in control. And those of us on the right, don't be smiling too much, because we got the extremes in control on the right also. And it's a shame. So let's take a look at also what Bill had to say. Bill said that Matt is going after the AG on our gun rights, most of which Matt has won and the AG has lost, costing us in Washington State millions of wasted dollars in legal fees. Can anybody tell me what Matt Shea has done in that realm? That's when I read that, I was in total shock. Now, 1639, I know who's involved in that. I don't see Matt Shea there because I'm involved in the lawsuit concerning 1639. I don't see Matt Shea there. Matter of fact, when I-594 was being run, the NRA put on a speaking engagement. They asked Matt and I both to be there. Because I was there, Matt wouldn't show up, so I went and carried the water for I-594. without Matt. So I'm really confused, Bill, on that one. The next slide. They wanted me to ask, or wanted the folks down there to ask me, if Matt is so dangerous, why did the Democratic-sponsored Rampart report? All right, folks, I want you to know something about this comment here. Why did the Democratic-sponsored Rampart report? Wrong, not true. It was actually the Republicans that authorized and said okay to the Rampart report. How do I know? Because after I received this email, I called the investigator involved in that report, haven't talked to her since she interviewed me last summer, and asked her a few questions, and some of those questions are going to come up. And this was one of them. And the next thing Bill says is the Rampart report says that Matt is innocent on page 81 of 121 under the risk assessment for any wrongdoings. Oh, that really caught my attention because I've read the report. Wow. And why haven't I or the FBI arrested Matt instead of going on local TV? Well, guess what? Every ounce of information I've given or I attain, I give to the FBI. I and the investigator of the Rampart report have the same question for the FBI and the House of Representatives, because, folks, this is what the investigator told me. She said, one, that report never said Matt Shea was innocent. As a matter of fact, let me pull it up real quick. What she said, and this is a text she sent me in reference to this email, as clearly stated in our report, it is the professional opinion of the investigators that on a more probable than not basis, Representative Shea presents a present and growing threat of risk to others through political violence. Left unchecked, his behavior and actions will continue. She also told me an interesting thing. She said, Sheriff, the true bulk of the report, the really important parts of the report, have never been viewed by the House of Representatives, and nor has the FBI ever come and asked me for them. They remain locked in my safe. She said the information contained in them is devastating concerning Matt Shea's activities. And she said it is very important that if the House does ask for those documents, that they protect the witnesses that have come forward, because they are at extreme risk. So, folks, we don't even have all of the facts in reference to this. But what has going back to this email, what Matt has done is labeled this lady a Democrat. He has labeled her a Democratic operative that did the bidding of the Democratic Party to try to take Matt Shea down, like the Democrats tried to take President Trump down. Matt, please quit comparing yourself and your dilemma to President Trump. You don't have that right. I'm telling you straight up. Your situation, no. But you have effectively put that information out. They have taken this falsehood around to several GOP central committees, and they've been duped into writing a I support Matt Shea resolution. Because this was not a Democratic sponsored report. The investigator told me she never talked to the Democrats. It was the Republicans she talked to, and it was only at the blessing of the Republicans that this report was completed. So these are the lies that are being told around the state, and actually they tried to go to Idaho and have some central committees do the same thing there. And I know, because one of the people after my presentation came up to me and went, I'm so glad to hear this. I wish we had heard it a couple of months ago. We didn't do his resolution, but we did move forward. We didn't do the resolution and because we just didn't feel comfortable, is what she said. The next slide, it tells you that, there were 11 counties passed those resolutions. Well, I wonder what those 11 counties would think if they actually had the truth. So, Matt Shea and the Coalition of Cows was part of my presentation. This is part of the slide presentation, that the leader of the Idaho 3%ers is taking quite exception to my presentation. And folks, I want you to remember that Cows was formed by Representative Shea. In 2015, Cows begins to spin up a falsehood concerning the Hammond family in Harney County, Oregon. I want you also to remember that the Hammond family did not want anything to do with this. They did not want their help. They told them not to do anything, but they still did. And 3 representatives from the state of Washington went to Malheur after Ammon Bundy took it over. And Matt Shea was heavily involved in this. That's what this report says, folks. The Rampart report says he was heavily involved in this. And he got these 3 Idaho representatives to follow him. Why? Because Heather Scott is very much associated with Matt Shea. The scary thing is, and I showed this slide in my presentation, is that now you have an Idaho candidate for, I think it's the House over there, and a GOP official asking the question, what are you willing to kill for? What have we become? Folks, people use those words really dang easy. To kill. But if you've ever faced the likelihood, or if you've ever had to take that action, you would never utter those words that flippantly. Because to take another human life is just something you better be very justified at doing that. And these people are talking about killing fellow Americans. Let's get it straight right up front. They are talking about killing fellow Americans. And there's Heather Scott. Next slide. Is that what we have become as a Republican Party? Really? Not me, and not the majority of the Republicans I know. We fight against this mentality. Folks, this thing about Matt Shea did not come from the Democrats. It came from us, the Republicans. And we deplore what Heather Scott and what she stands for. That is not who we are. But that's who she is. And quite frankly, she is very tight with Matthew. The next slide comes from a group that identifies itself on Facebook as Defending Idaho. And they call Martin Luther King a communist revolutionary, a plagiarizer, a degenerate. The line here, little children in rural public schools in Idaho are raising their fist in solidarity with the communist world revolution, is a bad omen and an indicator of terrible things to come. My God, how did we get here? Depending on what version of history you want to take, because it seems to be revisionist history is in the forefront right now. Everything I've read, most African Americans in the 60s were Republicans. Reverend Key's dad was a Republican, and depending on what story you wanted to follow, he was a Republican too. So how did Reverend King become a communist? It's because of the John Birch Society. And folks, this is the problem. The John Birch Society and the Libertarian Party have joined together, and they are trying to take over the Republican Party. That is just the way it is. And we fight them back. We have been fighting this battle for 14 years in Spokane County. The John Birch Society, and quite frankly, here's the book right here. You can go online, buy it, read it yourself. Do your own research. But going back to the slide, that's where this comes from, because John Birch Society said that, guess what? Reverend King is a communist. And the civil rights movement was a communist movement. I also showed this slide, and this is the Idaho 3%ers. And the person I'm going to put up next actually received a standing ovation at the House of Representatives in Idaho. Now, he took great exception, and he said I threatened him. And good grief. You know, Eric, I don't know what it is about your political mind frame and those who follow your mind frame, like Matt Shea, that you can't tell the truth. There was no threat. But this is the guy that got that ovation. This is Eric Parker pointing a rifle at law enforcement during Nevada's first Bundy standoff. And that standoff was based on a false movement. And ask any cattle producer, rancher, and they will tell you that Bundy was not truthful in his narrative as to what happened. Quite frankly, folks, he was stealing from you and I because he wouldn't pay his grazing fees. And here's the post that Eric put out, you know, disparaging my my going down and talking to the group. He actually attacks an 80-year-old woman, the chair of Region 7, Ann Radledge, on Facebook. And I'm like, well, I think that's a really bad move, Eric. She's tougher than you are. My money's on Ann. Ann Radledge was one of the first female legislators in the state of Idaho. And I met her. She reminds me much of my grandmother. So, Eric, you might want to watch yourself, because that lady, she won't put up with your nonsense. She's a great American, something you'll never be. So why is Eric so upset that he wasn't invited to an event honoring law enforcement? Because that's what the event was. That's why they brought me down. An event honoring law enforcement. He's upset about that. Really, Eric? Come on. You point guns at law enforcement officers and you think you're going to be invited to an event honoring us? Think again, my friend. Here's another one of the snippets that have been sent concerning the Facebook post of Eric. Matt Marshall, who's running against J.T. Wilcox, the Washington 3%ers, was upset that I wasn't cordial enough to him when he and his group came last Monday to speak to the Washington State Sheriff's Association. Well, I wasn't, because I met him as he walked in the door, he and his group, showed them a picture of Anthony Bosworth, the 3%er, that had the picture he had sent me, with a gun pointed at my head. I said, the conversation starts here. Matt went, you know, yeah, he's not, I don't know him, he's not one of us. I said, that's what your 3% movement means to me, though. The threats, the intimidation. He says, I get it, you know. I know it's kind of got a bad rap. We're actually thinking about changing the name of our group. And, you know, he got up in front of the sheriffs and said he's all about supporting veterans and everything else and gun rights. And they actually brought some paperwork wanting to arrest the AG or get him recalled. I took the paperwork. I told him I'll give him to the attorney involved in the lawsuit against the AG. But the hypocrisy that I see from these people is just amazing. Because Matt said, I'm not part of these people. Matt, how can you say that? And let's go back one slide and support this guy. Because you do support him. You told me you support him. How can you say that you support law enforcement and at the same time support an individual that broke the law, pointed guns at law enforcement, all because he was ginned up about a false narrative, and that's what it was. How? Let's go forward. One more. And folks, I want you to remember that Operation Cold Reality, this is the operation order for that movement down in Oregon. This is from Matt Shea. There's no getting away with it. So, folks, that's the way things are. And again, you know, the 3%er movement, there's a lot of good people who have been sucked into that rabbit hole. I just want you to take a close, quick second and think about what you're doing. Do you really support these people who point guns at your law enforcement? Do you support somebody that would take on an 80-year-old woman? Again, my money's on Ann. Because Eric, she'll take you. She is that tough. Folks, this is Sheriff Ozzie Knezovich with the Sheriff's Report. Have a great day.
Thanks for watching. Ask the host a question, recommend a guest, or check out any of our other programs on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or SpokaneTalksMedia.com. Sponsored by River Ridge Hardware.